Hello everyone, my name is Imbu and I'll be talking about the real tea from my experience in the sorority as I promised for my last video. And in this video, you can see this is a time lapse of my character Day from my D&D campaign, and he is in twice his Jihyo's The Feels outfit. Anyway, back to the story time, which is probably the part that you're watching for. Now, I'm probably going to sound very energetic because I have a lot of things that I want to talk about in this video, and I am so very passionate about this topic, so you're going to be hearing me cussing and probably just yelling into the mic. As I mentioned in my previous video, I explained all my good experiences, which was composed of my candidacy period and the first semester. So we left off in the spring 2020, and so I'll start with the fall 2020 semester when everything started going downhill. So to start off with something light and funny, it was fall 2020, and as director of merchandise, I was tasked with making two shirts, the semester shirt and the recruitment shirts. Fall 2020 recruitment week theme was rock and roll. So I decided to go with iconic bands with iconic designs, namely AC/DC and Rolling Stones. And I used a pun using our sorority name, and I just thought to use these bands because they're very universal and everyone knows these bands, even if they don't know rock and roll. So I remember I got this anonymous comment saying that they wish the shirts would actually represent the rock and roll theme. And I was like, what the fuck? How fucking stupid do you have to be to make that comment? How can these bands not represent rock and roll? Did they want like flaming guitars and a rock and roll hand sign with the man jamming like their head to a song or something? Like, that was so dumb. Like, if I were to come up with an analogy, this would be equivalent to asking me to create a theme based off of video games and me using classics like Mario, Sonic, or even like Legend of Zelda, something that everyone knows, and then saying that I was wrong and that I should have used controllers or like a fucking GameCube console for the design instead. And it didn't really break my heart or anything, but I just thought the comment was so fucking dumb, and it was like the highlight of the month for me, and I just remember recalling it and joking about it all month. Anyway, so to the real tea. To dive into deeper issues, there were two main complaints about the sorority: sisterhood and professionalism. In response to sisterhood, I actually created a system called sister teams. It was a randomized group of 4 girls, and they had a whole month to try to get to know each other. It was very systemized and organized. There were 2 parts to the system: sister relations and academics. I worked with the director of sister relations. She made questionnaires, and each team had to create their own slideshow of each member, with the catch being that you couldn't create your own slide, and another member would have to create a slide for you. I honestly thought this requirement was easy given my excitement to work with sisters I usually don't talk to, and you know, you're paying to have friends, basically, which is the point of the sorority. And the slides were simple too. It was literally just your name, a picture of your face, and maybe like an interesting fact of maybe a favorite movie or personality type. And for requirements for my end as director of academics was for each team to study for 5 hours together, which is not really hard because each individual sister, regardless of these 5 hours, is supposed to get 20 hours a month minimum. Also, on top of that, it is much easier online than in person because all you have to do is get your ass out of bed, turn on the computer, and open Microsoft Teams. Like, what is hard in that? Anyways, I wasn't monitoring these sisters either. I wasn't like holding their hand, making sure like they were talking to each other and that they were properly interacting. Like, I didn't have time for that. The director of sister relations did not have time for that either. We did not have time to hold their hand throughout the whole process. And that was my response to dealing with sisterhood. In response to the issues about professionalism, I created a professional development workshops to help sisters with stuff like resumes, elevator pitches, career fair tips, all of that. And it was only once a month, and there was 3 of them. You were only required to go to one of the 3. So unlike sister teams, I had to be strict with attendance for these workshops. I had to have a mandatory attendance because the people I were asking to come talk to us were people with full-time jobs who are volunteering their time to talk to us. I'm not going to ask people to volunteer their already small amount of time to come and give a presentation and end up having no one being there. It gives only me a bad name, but the sorority a bad name, and it makes people less willing to help us out. So in the end, these workshops ended up being a bust. And honestly, with sister teams, we just had a lot of people missing the requirements for both sister relations and the academic section. And we knew there were issues, mainly us bringing it up sort of last minute and just kind of having a new system entirely. But because of that, we were very lenient. More than half the time, we didn't even count the attendance issues because we understood the struggle. People either just didn't have time or they felt burnt out because of the pandemic. And we didn't mind excusing these people for attendance as long as they did one thing: talk to us, let us know. But no one ever told me anything. And in fact, we even created an anonymous complaint form for this specific purpose. I actually learned about these issues that people were having with sister teams through gossip and people talking behind my back. And I honestly felt like I was back in middle school dealing with children again. People were complaining over and over again about the same issues, which, by the way, they're still struggling to this day. And I'm not even going there anymore, so I know I wasn't the issue. And also there's lots of hypocrisy. People preaching about communication, but they never even so much as sent me a text or email about the issues they had. And these sisters would be talking about having strong bonds, being there for another, being understanding of people with differing personalities and interests. But they refused to try to even get to know a fellow sister. Not a stranger, a fellow sister. On a basic surface level, they only stuck to their own friend groups and shunned those who were too weird. And honestly, I provided solutions. I put my effort into the sorority. I was putting hours every week for the sorority. The question is, were they? Throughout both semesters, I went to all events unless I had classes. And even then, I would ditch classes just so I could go to these events. I did extra stuff that wasn't asked of me. I attended all the MEMED classes, which was about 2 hours every week that I didn't have to. I even substituted in for the director of membership education for leading initiation when she couldn't make it, which, by the way, is a big event that makes a candidate an official sister. Now, here's the heartbreak of the century, and it wasn't with a partner. The big moment where the perfect picture of my sorority experience broke and shattered was the last social event of the year in fall 2020. It was the big event where we got to officially hang out for one last time of the year and acknowledge the hard work of our sisters. And I was so excited. I worked so hard, both in my officer position and just as a regular sister. I had just failed 2 classes within the past few days, which the circumstances were kind of out of my control. And I just wanted good news in this ocean of failure in my semester. I just wanted to know that my hard work wasn't for a waste. And I kept waiting to hear my name. It never came. I never got an award nor acknowledgement in that night. I was sitting there, hearing the names of others being praised. There were people being awarded that I don't think they deserved any award. They did the bare minimum for their officer position. They didn't even do the bare minimum as a sister. Half the time, many of them weren't even at the events. Many of them were just complaining about sisterhood and professionalism and were doing jack shit to fix it. I saw these awards being handed out to what was basically a popularity poll. They were being praised to all ends for doing their job. And this is when I started to doubt if my time at the sorority was even worth it. Because I went the extra mile since day one when I was a candidate, not even initiated. And I didn't have to go through all this extra stuff, but I wanted to. I never complained about the extra load because I loved working for the sorority. And despite feeling like I was burning out and all the shit that I got for trying to help the sorority, along with no acknowledgement for the things I did for the sorority, I kept pushing through. I ran for and won the director of membership education because I wanted to give the enthusiasm that I had for the sorority to the newer candidates. I wanted the next generation of candidates to thrive and be proud of their sorority. And the next semester, spring 2021, came when I was officially working as director of membership education. And it came to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I was already far burnt out on my classes, and I finally realized that this sorority just didn't need nor want me. So I quit. I focused on my mental health, and I've been recovering since then. In conclusion, I don't regret rushing for the sorority. It was an experience that I would not trade the world for. However, if my life were to reset and I had a chance to rush for the sorority knowing what I know now, I would turn the fuck around and run out of there like I'm being chased by a psychopath killer. And originally I was going to sugarcoat this and look at the mainly positive aspects of the sorority, but it was a fucking nightmare disguised as a pretty dream. All the drama and gossip I didn't really care about. In fact, I actually loved hearing it. Not participating in it, but I just loved watching afar with a bowl of popcorn. But Fuck all those people who I gave time to and kicked me off the cliff into depression while pretending to care about me and preaching about mental health. On another note, I'm sorry to those who I genuinely cared about and are still in the sorority. I'm sorry that you still have to deal with these shitty people on a daily basis and act like you genuinely care for them. However, I wanted to get this message out there and hopefully help those who haven't gone through what I have. And this isn't even about a sorority or just like groups in general. Don't ever give more than what you're receiving in return. It may sound like common sense, and I often hear about this specific advice in individual relationships, but it can come in many forms like your family or even group projects at school. I certainly didn't expect it coming out in the form of sorority. And I probably sound like a naive 22-year-old trying to blindly teach a life lesson here, but I just wanted to share these experiences in hopes that someone might realize that they're burning out. Anyways, thank you for listening in to me basically venting about my horrible sorority experience. I don't have a tutorial for this specific time-lapse, but I did promise that I was going to provide a walkthrough tutorial of my previous time-lapse. Link to the time-lapse will be in the description, or you can click on the video on the top left. If you want to see more content like this, story times, painting walkthroughs in the future, then please like and subscribe. Okay, bye!